When you talk of the history of amateur football in Victoria, you naturally have to talk about the Monash Blues Football Club. No amateur club can boast of a more truly unique historical record. It was in the university's first year of 1961 when Doug Ellis rallied a small number of staff and students to form a club which had no league to play in, no jumper and, like the university itself, a paucity of facilities. The enthusiasm of this band of stout young fellows, however, convinced the VAFA to take a punt on the Stripling Club for the 1962 season. Supporters like Professor Keith Frierson, who would, over the years, be drawn away from South Melbourne by the bohemian grassroots nature of the club. And players like Peter Longney, a star in A section who gladly joined the newcomers to the lowest section in the competition and was considered a capable leader of men. The debut season resulted in a much-celebrated E-Section premiership, following a thrilling 34-point victory over Old Haileybury. The two clubs were to establish something of a traditional rivalry, playing off again for the D-Section premiership in 1963. As may have been expected, the club consolidated its position in C-Section for some years before making the double jump to A-Section, playing off in grand finals in 1967 and 1968. It was during this period that Peter Slaggy Robinson won the club's first section best and fairest medal in 1964. Other great players of that era included Stuart Galbraith, Ross Booth, and the supreme ruck rover combination of Chris Cole and Peter Rattray. The extraordinarily successful club had entered its golden age, maintaining its place in A section for 7 of the 8 years between 1969 and 1976, and making another grand final in its only year in B section. The club was coached during this period by Sam Birtles and Clyde Laidlaw. Captains of the period included Nick Rogers, Phil Knight, Ross Booth, Mick Sweetland and John Syme. After the successes of the club's first 15 years, it came as something of a shock to endure a more difficult and less obviously rewarding period. Relegated in 84 and 85, Monash Blues found itself in the unfamiliar territory of D section. It was during that period, however, that the foundations were laid for the club's next golden age. Professor Keith Frierson and Brian Ford were part of the backbone which held the club together at that time, and under whose tutelage, up-and-comers like 1986 D-Section Best and Fairest winner Andy McGregor, Adrian Barker and Harry Hildebrand learned the skill and leadership that would make them such important contributors to the club's 3 grand final appearances in 1986, 1987 and 1991. 1987 was the year when the Monash Blues, despite all of its previous grand final appearances, finally won its second premiership under the guidance of ex-Oakley hardman Brian Ford, who, in 1991, would become the only man to coach the club to 3 grand finals. During his 10 years of coaching, he was constantly bewildered by frustratingly artistic Monash players such as the Quinn brothers, Jugs Alexander and Lee Baring. 1991 saw perhaps the biggest roller coaster ride in the club's history, under the captaincy of 1992 B section best and fairest winner Jamie Sturgis. A 9-game winning streak, commencing in round 12, saw the team leap from being relegation contenders to grand finalists before the run was tragically cut short on the last day of the season. Monash's third premiership came under the guidance of new coach Dave Rogers in 1996, and that was also the season when Captain Greg Hipwell became the only man in the club's history to win 3 Best and Fairest trophies. Unfortunately, the club returned to D section for the 1998 season, where it remains despite a strong year in 1999 when young champion Sam McGee won the club championship and the club made the preliminary final. Monash now stands on the precipice of a new era, having mourned the loss of club and university legend Keith Frierson at the beginning of 2000. The club has recently merged with the Monash Whites and has modified its jumper to include the university logo as part of the design, while maintaining the famous turquoise and silver, known throughout the league as the colours of one of the most admired teams in the amateurs.